Bob Sajanowski works as a bartender in a small Brooklyn bar. To outsiders, the bar looks ordinary. In reality, it serves as a drop bar for the local mafia, a place where crime money is held each night before couriers pick it up. The bar's owner never knows in advance when it will be used, since the mafia decides everything. This is the drop. One night, Bob serves a group of regulars reminiscing about an old friend who passed away. Wanting to be kind, he offers them a free round of drinks. Marv, his cousin and the bar's manager, quickly scolds him. Marv reminds him that the bar is part of a mafia operation, and nothing can be done carelessly. He also orders Bob to collect a debt for Millie, and to throw her out if she stays past midnight. The next day, Bob goes to church, keeping up his quiet faith despite working in a violent world. Later that night, on his way home, he hears a faint whimper near a trash can. Investigating, he finds a wounded puppy. Nadia, the homeowner, comes outside and is wary of seeing Bob in her yard. After he explains, she checks his ID and even takes his photo for safety. Together, they treat the puppy's wounds. Bob notices a scar on Nadia's neck that sparks his curiosity, but he chooses not to ask. When the puppy is stable, they debate whether to give it to a shelter or keep it. Since Bob doubts he can care for it, they agree that Nadia will keep the puppy for 2 days. The following night, just before closing, 2 masked gunmen storm the bar. They do not realize it is a mafia drop bar. The robbers threaten Bob and force Marv to bag the cash. Marv warns them the money belongs to dangerous people, but they ignore him. During the robbery, Bob notices one of the men wearing a broken wristwatch. After taking the money, the robbers escape. Bob and Marv are unharmed, but their friend Rardy is injured. Soon after, police arrive led by Detective Torres, who knows Bob from church. Bob gives his statement. He cannot identify the robbers since they wore masks, but he mentions the broken watch. When the police leave, Marv angrily confronts Bob for sharing that detail. He fears the mafia will suspect their involvement, since such a large sum has gone missing. The next day, Bob goes to church as usual. His attention lingers on a statue of a man with a dog at his side. Later, he visits Nadia's house to pick up the puppy. Together, they shop for supplies and decide to name the puppy Rocock. Their bond grows closer, unaware that Eric, a mysterious man, is secretly watching them. A few days later, while Bob and Marv shovel snow behind the bar, Kopka Umarov, the big boss and true owner, arrives with his entourage. He suspects an inside job in the robbery, but with the robbers masked, the only clue is the broken wristwatch. Kopka orders Bob and Marv to recover the stolen money. Marv worries this might be a trap. If they succeed, they could be accused of being the thieves themselves. Meanwhile, Detective Torres discusses the case with his partner. He explains that the bar has been under mafia control ever since Papa Umar, Kopka's father, took over. Torres suspects that Kopka staged the robbery to undermine his father, though Papa Umar himself remains untouchable. In secret, Marv meets with Pitch, one of the robbers. It is revealed that Marv planned the robbery. He scolds Pitch for beating up Rardy in front of witnesses, risking police and ambulance attention. Marv then demands Pitch destroy the broken watch, since the clue has already spread and could expose them. The next morning, Bob plays with Rocock in the park. Nadia offers to help care for the puppy, since her work hours have been reduced. Bob agrees. After Nadia leaves, Eric approaches Bob, makes a brief comment about Rocock, then walks away, raising Bob's suspicions. Elsewhere, Marv walks along the sidewalk when a man in a car asks for directions. The man seems suspicious. That evening, Eric visits Bob's home. He claims to be stopping by because of the cold weather, but quickly shifts to asking about Rocock. He insists the puppy belongs to him and shows a chip number as proof. Bob refuses to hand over Rocock, citing Eric's mistreatment of the dog. Eric twists the story, threatens to report Bob for abuse, and leaves with Bob's umbrella. Later, Bob meets Nadia at a cafe. She thanks him for not asking about the scar on her neck, explaining that most people would. Bob replies that it is her personal business unless she chooses to share. Nadia then admits the scar came from a drunken accident with a potato peeler. Their talk is cut short when they are asked to leave for bringing the puppy inside. Back at the bar, Marv confides to Bob that someone has been following him. Bob admits he has noticed the same and suspects Eric, the man who claimed ownership of the puppy. Marv warns that Eric has been stalking Bob, and soon after, while taking out the trash behind the bar, the two discover a plastic bag filled with blood-stained money and a severed hand still wearing the broken watch. Bob carefully wraps the hand while Marv observes how practiced he seems, as if this is not his first time handling such things. Suddenly, Eric walks into the bar. He greets Bob and casually mentions Nadia's name.
Hi, Nadia. Don't forget to stitch her up when she stabs herself, all right?
Bob explains to Marv that Eric claimed the puppy was his. Marv grows uneasy and reveals that Eric is suspected of killing Rick 10 years ago, the same man mourned at the start of the film. Eric has a long record of violence, prison time, and psychiatric treatment. He is considered extremely dangerous, but Bob remains calm. The next day, Bob disposes of the severed hand by throwing it into the sea while walking with Rocock. Soon after, Detective Torres approaches him, asking about Eric and suggesting a possible link to Rick's disappearance. Bob admits he once knew Rick but denies knowing Eric. Later, Bob visits Nadia to leave the puppy in her care. He asks if she knows Eric, since Eric had mentioned her name. Nadia insists she does not and storms off angrily. Bob watches in silence, puzzled by her reaction. That night, Kopka Umarov meets Bob and Marv at the bar. He collects money and informs them that the bar will serve as a drop location on Superblow night. Meanwhile, Detective Torres continues his investigation into Rick's death and the bar robbery. Later, when Bob returns home, he finds Nadia waiting for him. She apologizes and admits she once dated Eric. She describes him as violent and dangerous, then warns Bob that Eric is Rick's killer. Bob, already aware, shows no surprise. Their relationship grows closer, but Bob avoids romance and simply escorts her home. When he returns, Bob notices Eric's umbrella inside Rocock's cage, proof that Eric has entered his house. Meanwhile, Marv picks up Pitch, pretending to help him. Pitch is cautious because of his brother's recent death, but Marv assures him there is no risk. Once Pitch enters the car, Marv asks him to close the trunk. As Pitch steps out, Marv runs him over, switches vehicles, and drives away. It is revealed that Marv killed Pitch's brother and left the severed hand behind to make both Pitch and Bob believe Kopka was responsible. Later, Marv meets Eric at a restaurant. He lies, telling Eric that Bob is afraid of him, then suggests bringing him in on a robbery plan for Superblow night. At the same time, Detective Torres reviews Eric's psychological records and uncovers disturbing details. Elsewhere, Bob visits Eric and refuses to return Rocock. Eric demands $10,000, threatening to report Bob to the police to claim the dog. The threat follows the plan Marv had already discussed with Eric. Bob stays calm and avoids reacting with violence. That night, Bob visits Marv's house. Marv claims he will not be at the bar on Superblow night because he is sick. He suggests Bob hire another bartender. Bob grows suspicious, sensing that Marv is planning something. Preparing for trouble, he takes his savings and places them, along with a pistol, inside the bar's drawer. Meanwhile, Eric breaks into Nadia's house. When she comes home, she notices her belongings have been disturbed. Realizing Eric has been inside, she orders him to leave. Instead, Eric forces her to come with him to the bar that night. At the bar, Bob is busy receiving mafia money when he suddenly sees Nadia arrive with Eric. He keeps his eyes on them as chaos builds around him. Outside, Marv prepares his own plan. He lines the trunk of his car with plastic, making it clear he is ready for violence. Inside, Eric approaches Bob and demands the $10,000. Bob refuses unless Eric provides documents and proof through the chip that Rocock is his. Their exchange is cut short when Eric gets a call from Marv. Marv tells him he showed up too early and instructs him to wait until 2 a.m. to carry out the job. From his car, Marv listens in on the bar's conversations to track what is happening. At the counter, Nadia quietly tells Bob that Eric forced her to come by threatening her at home. Bob gives Eric the $10,000, but Eric reveals his real goal. He plans to steal the mafia's money from the bar safe, which unlocks automatically for 90 seconds at set intervals. Bob realizes the ransom demand was only a cover, and Eric's true plan has always been to target the mafia's cash. Eric then asks Bob how much Nadia means to him and pretends to ask about Marv's whereabouts. Bob takes the opportunity to share a story from 10 years earlier, when Marv was drowning in gambling debt. A big win at the casino allowed him to pay it off, but the man who kept pressuring him and threatening the bar was Rick. Bob secretly killed Rick, shooting him twice in the face, mutilating the body, and hiding it in the underground tank. The long-standing rumor that Eric was Rick's killer was false. With the truth revealed, Eric continues his threats until Bob finally has enough. He shoots Eric, exposing his cold-blooded side, then warns Nadia that men like Eric never stop and must be eliminated. Terrified, Nadia runs from the bar, shaken but alive. As she leaves, Marv waits outside and tries to call Eric. Instead, Bob answers the phone in silence, already knowing Marv was the mastermind behind it all. Bob then dismembers Eric's body and wraps the remains. Soon after, Kopka's men arrive. They collect the mafia's money along with Eric's body parts. Before leaving, they offer Bob full control of the bar. They also reveal they had already dealt with Marv. While Marv sat in his car eavesdropping, he was executed on the spot.
Quiet, please.
The next day, Detective Torres visits the bar. He gives his condolences over Marv's death and reports Eric's disappearance. Police records confirm Eric was in a psychiatric hospital at the time Rick vanished, proving he could not have been involved. Torres hints at his suspicion of Bob and says he will be called as a witness. Later that day, Bob goes to see Nadia. He apologizes for pulling her into danger and asks her not to see him again. Nadia, instead, invites him to leave with her. She tells Bob that she wants to marry him. So the moral of the story is if you find a puppy in the trash, be ready to deal with mobsters, severed hands, and way too many awkward conversations.